People of Reddit who knew celebrities before they were famous, how different do they act now? I live in a town where Dolly Parton grew up. And practically everyone above the age of 50 who grew up here claims to either be a distant relative of Dolly's, or they claim to know her in some way. Everyone has their story of the time they met Dolly. It's pretty obvious. But regardless of who you talk to, Dolly has always been sweet and generous. But everything has simply grown exponentially due to her fame. Examples are the millions of books she gives out for free to children around the globe each month. Or how she gave out $10,000 cash to many of my close friends after their houses burned in a fire a couple years back. Thousands of people are employed here and work for one of the businesses she owns. And it's a tad strange to see when you walk in. But the birthing center at the local hospital is funded by and named after her. I honestly can't think of one person I know who doesn't like her. Dolly's heart has only gotten bigger because of fame. When I was really young, I'd go the reptile park. Originally owned by Bob Irwin and passed on to his son Steve. Steve was always nice. Would do all the lizard and croc shows. Would hang out and chat afterwards. My dad would take me there occasionally and Steve would seem to remember us. Treated everyone like an old buddy. This was before he became famous, obviously. And the small reptile park became the Australia Zoo. In my final year of high school I got in the zoo for work experience and they let me stay on. Steve was rarely there. And when he was he'd avoid guests, because they would swarm him and he'd get nothing done. But when I did run into him he was always super nice and still acted like that old friend. Didn't say crike nearly as much as you'd think. That's definitely something Aussies say, but he really played that up for the cameras as his catchphrase. Unfortunately he died later that year, so right up till the end he was just a lovely person. Jack Black is the same person he was as a teenager. Funny, kind, caring, and spreading the joy of music. Not personally, but everyone in my town has a Dave Chappelle story. I worked with a guy who said he knew him. I call BS. We then met Dave and they were actually friends. Basically no one in town thought he would be much. Now he is a local hero, really down to earth. You literally see this man just chilling in the park in normal cheap clothes. Nothing has changed him. You wouldn't think he was famous. Maybe homeless but not famous. My grandpa, Rip, owned a grocery store in Miami in the late 70s. Wesley Snipes and his friends once stole some candy from his store and when he caught them he let them have it. Since then Wesley and his friends were regulars. Once, Wesley left his bike in front of the store and it got stolen. Was a pretty bad area. My grandpa gave him his old bike that he kept in the back of the store. My uncle took over in 2001 when my grandpa died. In 2007 he came back to the store while my uncle and cousin were there. To ask about my grandpa. My uncle said they talked for a little over an hour about how my grandpa treated him like a son. When he found out my grandpa passed he felt guilty he didn't visit sooner. He embraced my uncle and cousin and left. My uncle said he told him they plan on having the building repainted while they talked. About a week later a crew of painters arrived and told my uncle they were already paid to have the building repainted. Such a genuine dude. My grandfather taught Jack Nicholson in high school math class. Said he was rebellious but wasn't too bad at math. My aunt was best friends with Madonna in high school, stayed friends until she got famous and she turned into a completely different person in the worst way possible. My co-worker's dad grew up with Queen Latifah in North Jersey. His whole family loves her because they were about to lose their house. So she paid it off for them. They've never said a bad thing about her. Queen Latifah, if this gets back to you, thanks for what you did for your friends in New Jersey. Phil's a really cool guy. I can't remember before my aunt was famous. Alex Kingston played River Song in Doctor Who. But I remember going to her wedding and meeting Matt Smith, who played the Doctor in Doctor Who, and him fixing my flip-flop. The best moment of my life ever. I had a teacher who taught Drake. Apparently he was a nice kid but then got really douchey when he started getting famous. Tyler the Creator, exactly the same. We were all concerned at how bizarre he was. He would call people a table or something incredibly random, and the sense of humor caught on in my high school. The fame did nothing. He's still strange and a sweetheart. My dad was good friends with Will Smith before the Fresh Prince days. Will actually showed him the pilot before it aired. Fast forward however many years to After Earth, and Will invited us on the set. His first words when he saw my dad 10+ years later was, "The Philly crew is back." Both Will and Jaden are the sweetest people you'll ever meet. My mom knew Seal as far back as when he was still trying to be an architect. And she says he was always really nice. They didn't stay in touch. She moved away and they were never close. But she said he went out of his way to foster genuine connections to people before and after his music started to gain traction. He always had star quality. Everyone from the most important person in the room to a janitor walking through would be drawn to him, and had engaged with everyone in a way that really stuck. She always mentions that he was just a really sincere, deeply felt person. Went to middle school with Megan Fox for a bit. She rode my bus and she mostly kept to herself. Most of the guys would fight over who was going to sit next to her, but she was very shy and didn't really have much to say. I went to junior high with Nora Jones. She was the most sincere and serene person. She was fun to talk to and she never gave a hint of who her father was. The night she won all those Grammys was very telling that she hadn't changed a bit. My mom is friends with Johnny Knoxville's cousin. She met him once and had no idea who he was. She said he was nice and funny as all hell. She didn't realize until years later she'd even met him until I showed her one of his movies. From what I gather, he's a normal dude and pretty hilarious. I went to college with Joe Keery, aka Steve Harrington in Stranger Things. He was my college boyfriend's sweet mate and just the nicest guy. His hair has always been dreamy and amazing. Last time I saw him was at a viewing of The Hateful Eight after we graduated, and he still made a point to come over and say hi. I know this is not what the question is asking. It's sort of the other way around. Have you met a famous person who is as nice as people say? But as it's about Tom Hanks, it has to be told. My cousin worked at a legal chambers in London, and they were told a film crew were coming in to use it for a few weeks. They were told, don't engage with the actors. Just go about your business. The film The Da Vinci Code. And, as per above spoilers, Tom Hanks was in it. For a day or 3. They all did as they were told. Kept their heads down. Until eventually Tom Hanks came and knocked on their lunchroom door. Basically just said, "Sus for messing up where you work. Can I join you for lunch?" And then it was on. Every day. Breakfast and lunch. Where time permitted. Tom Hanks was hanging out with these guys like he was a new employee. Reading the newspaper. Making cups of tea. Getting in the bacon rolls or whatever. Calling people's family members to say hi, it's Tom Hanks, for a laugh just to see this reaction. Basically, after a couple of weeks, was just like one of the team. Everyone on first name terms. Just genuinely nice. Last day he made sure to say bye to everyone. He brought them all some kind of gift, I can't remember what. But it was really low-key. Inexpensive. But personal, which was a nice touch. Just really wholesome time for everyone. People say Tom Hanks is an absolute lad. And it transpires he is. Family friend of mine actually dated Kurt Cobain before MS. Love. Apparently they broke up because he wouldn't get a job. Then a little while later he got famous. Can't finish the question for obvious reasons. I knew Tom Holland at the time he did the Tsunami movie. We were not really friends, but he was so funny and friendly. Friend of mine was friends with Tom Hanks in high school and went to prom with him. He still writes her personalized birthday cards on one of his typewriters. I went to high school with Emma Chamberlain. She was a huge bully in high school and pretty much a brat who thought she could get away with whatever she wanted, before she got famous. Her parents were divorced, which led to them both always trying to be her friend and never actually parenting her. So they basically let her do whatever she wanted. When she said that people from her high school made fun of her because she was poor and that the parking lot was all BMWs and Range Rovers, I lost my mind because she was the bully in high school. And while the school definitely had some wealthy students, it was mostly a middle-class crowd. My brother knows the guy that Squidward was based off of. Turns out that made him more bitter cause he was made fun of. Chris Hemsworth and his brother Liam. Both really good blokes before and after they became famous. My best friend is cousins with Tyler Posey. She said he was a sweetheart before his Teen Wolf days and he still is now. My brother used to play basketball with a bunch of people in high school. Among those who would sometimes join in was Pete Davidson. My brother said he got ripped on a ton and no one really liked him. But that might just be because he wasn't great at basketball. My aunt had dinner with Keanu Reeves and other people before he did Matrix when he came to Spain. She said that Keanu was very handsome and incredibly polite. A co-worker of mine met Daisy Ridley while on a backpacking trip. Got to know each other pretty well while traveling together. She told my co-worker that she wanted to become an actress. Looks like that panned out pretty well. They said Daisy was an absolutely lovely individual. I knew Robert Pattinson about 15 years ago. Nice guy. Friendly. A lot of fun to be with. He lived by himself in the center of Soho, London. In a tiny one-bed flat that I think he felt like the romantic vision of a starving artist. Or at least wanted to. He had a weird side. He'd say random, violent, depraved things. He was obsessed with Jack Nicholson. He never really gave a duck. He had confidence and he was always himself. And he knew he could be deliberately contradictory and he used that as a personality trope. But he was a good guy. And I get the impression he's very comfortable with himself now that he has developed his career. That he acts very well. And that he can pick and choose his roles based upon what he wants to do and who he wants to work with. Twilight for him was always a means to an end. And I think he worked it very much to his benefit. And didn't compromise himself. My aunt went to high school with Obama and apparently he was called Barry. Otherwise he was basically the same. My sister has a friend that's cousins with The Weeknd. From what my sister told me, he doesn't attend large family gatherings as much. Apparently some relatives only want to ask him questions in regards to his fame and whatnot. I'm not sure if that meant they ask him for favors. But it must get annoying either way. It must suck to be around family. And not be your regular old self. At the same time, it must be hard for his relatives to see him as the same guy before he got famous. I'm not saying that they shouldn't try. But people are naturally weird and awkward. It's just another shitty part about being famous. And I'm sure he's not the only celebrity that's gone through this.